Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Benefits of Coaching webinar. I am Coach Chidima Umahi, and I got certified as a coach with EZ37 Solutions. Today, I'll be your co-presenter for this webinar. We really appreciate you taking out time to be here. Just before we proceed, let's get to know each other. I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat by sharing your name, your location, and one thing you hope to learn or achieve from today's webinar. So I will be checking the chat box. I'm hoping to see our names. Just to confirm that everyone can access the chat. So we have Oluwatayo, whose hand is raised. His virtual hand is raised.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Chidima. It appears the chat is disabled. I was actually trying to put in my comment.
Yes, we cannot access our chats, please.
Yes.
I really apologize for that. I'm sure the technical person is sorting that out. But hello, Oluwatayo, and hello, Adora. It's great to have you join us. I also see John, I see Abiola, I see Catherine, I see Omoshola, Opeyemi, Silas, Steph, Sunday, Daniel. It really is great to have you join us today. Throughout this webinar, we'll explore how coaching inspires trust and empathy, how it improves self-awareness, as well as how it unlocks new sources of innovation and productivity. And with this webinar, we aim to provide practical tips, strategies, and actionable takeaways you can apply in your field and your organization. Now, this is an interactive session. We value your thoughts, your questions, and your contribution. So please feel free to use the chat function, which will be enabled shortly, or the Q&A section to share your thoughts, insights, and questions. The questions will be addressed during the Q&A section just before this webinar ends. Now let's officially get started. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the presenter of today. Our presenter is Coach Patricia Akinloton. And Coach Patricia Akinloton is an executive and leadership coach. She's an associate certified coach with the International Coaching Federation, the ICF. Coach Patricia is a board member and director of Social Impact International Coaching Federation Nigeria chapter. She is a facilitator at Easy Coaching. She's an executive director at EZ37 Solutions. And she has over 25 years corporate experience nationally and internationally. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our presenter for today, Coach Patricia Akinloton. Over to you, Coach Patricia.
Thank you very much, Chidima. It's a delight to be here. Welcome, everyone. And this is going to be an amazing opportunity for you to find out more about coaching. The objective of the session today is really to learn and to deliver a bit more insight. And we have three key areas to share with you. To find out more really about how coaching inspires trust and empathy. Empathy is such an important subject in our environment today. Also to find out more about how does coaching improve self-awareness. It all starts with the individual in an organization. How does coaching actually improve self-awareness? And we follow on with that about how does coaching actually unlock new sources of innovation and productivity. So I really want you to take part, ask questions, just get ready to be more informed, and let's have as much collaboration and interaction as we can possibly to learn together today. So who are we? Who is EZ37 Solutions? And I just thought it would be useful to share with you a little bit about us. We're a world-class organization. We were established in 2009. We are one of two coach training organizations in Nigeria, and we are accredited by the International Coaching Federation, ICF. ICF is actually the gold standard for coaching globally. Now, you may hear me mention ICF a bit more throughout the webinar, but they just to give you a snapshot, they are the most recognized coaching organization worldwide. EZ37 Solution is also a signatory to the International Finance Corporation Learning and Performance Institute, the IFCLPI. And the IFCLPI is an arm of the World Bank. So we provide coach certification programs to organizations, as well as bespoke programs that really suit the nature of the of different organizations nationally and internationally. I have a poll now for you. I'd like to know a little bit about your thinking as far as coaching is concerned. So we're just gonna now share a poll with you. Thank you. And here's the poll. How familiar are you with the concept of coaching? It'd be great to know a little bit more about that from you. So please go ahead and share with us about your familiarity with the concept of coaching. And thank you so much to those who have really gone full stream and are completing the poll. Thank you so much. Making progress. We're more than halfway through. Okay. So we're just going to hang on for a few more seconds. We have 65% of participants have completed the poll, and the number's rising, which is great, really great. Okay, so I think at this point we can share the results of the poll, and let's see what we found out. Okay, so we're finding out that 27% of yourselves have a sense of understand about coaching, with about 69% having a basic understanding and about 4% not quite knowing anything about coaching, and that's fine, because we're here to learn and we're here to share knowledge as much as we can with each other. Thank you. I now have a video for you to watch. It gives a snapshot of what coaching is. It's by Smith Partnership LLC, and do just take a moment to watch this video. Let's watch this video together.
When you hear the word coaching, what springs to mind? Football coach? Acting coach? Vocal coach? Maybe even a financial coach? Confusing, isn't it? Well, coach has become such a popular title that it's being used by lots of professions, often with no training. And sometimes coaching is just a fancy way of saying, I'll ask you a few questions and then tell you what I think you should do. Well, let's clear the air a little bit about coaching. Coaching is often confused with therapy, consulting, and mentoring. Now, those are great helping professions, but they're not professional coaching. Here's the difference. Therapists focus on the past and work to fix what's broken. Consultants provide quantitative analysis and create roadmaps for organizational change. They get paid to provide answers. Mentors help those with less experience. Mentors are already experts in their field and are helping others reach success. Now, there may be some overlaps in approach, but none of these are professional coaching. Professional coaching is a different type of conversation. There's a whole lot of asking and not much telling. Professional coaches are focused on you, helping you design your future, your goals. They're thought-provoking and inspirational. You work on your topic. A professional coach focuses on you. Professional coaches are also discerning listeners, empathetic, creative, intuitive, and curious. They're trained in coaching behaviors and competencies, which makes them really good coaches, and they're bound by professional standards and ethics. A professional coach will be your partner, your advocate, your champion.
Thank you very much for your time in watching that video. And I do hope that that you've been able to gain some insights, just a snapshot of, about coaching. And so I really would like to just share with you a common question that people normally ask me is, what's the difference between a coach and a mentor? And I think it's important for me to say that although both coaching and mentoring are effective methods for personal and professional development, there are some key differences. But also, it's critical to note that these distinctions are not absolute, all right? Because sometimes you do find overlap. So some coaching may actually include mentoring elements, while others may include coach-like conversations. So it's not an absolute distinction, but it is worth you just recognizing a few differences. So the approach taken within an organization will be determined by the needs and goals of the individual concerned as to whether you select for them to have a coach, or you select for them to have a mentor, or you have a combination of both. Now, I've got a few headings here, such as purpose, dynamics of the relationship, expertise, and approach. And I just, obviously there are a lot more elements that we could look at, but I'd just like to take these four and just give you a sense of how you could see the difference between a coach and a mentor. Now let's look at purpose. The coach will support individuals achieve specific goals. For example, improving performance and developing new skills. A mentor will provide guidance based on the mentor's own experience and expertise. When it comes to the dynamics of the relationship, the relationship between coach and coachee is generally more structured and goal-oriented. So the coach actually facilitates the process by asking probing questions, providing feedback, and holding the coachee accountable. With a mentor, the relationship is usually more frequently, more casual, you can say, and based on the mentee's own personal experience and wisdom. When you look at expertise, for example, coaches are not always subject matter experts in the field of the coachee. And this is actually a very, very important element of distinction between a coach and a mentor. So a coach would assist the coachee in self-discovery and growth in general. Mentors, on the other hand, are usually experienced professionals in the mentee's field. And based on their own experiences, they share their knowledge, they give advice, and they provide guidance. On approach, in general, coaching is more question-based, thought-provoking questions, as we say in coaching, encouraging people to explore their own insights. Because you're coaching someone who is creative, intelligent, and whole. And so, generally speaking, the coach will assist the coachee in identifying barriers, developing action plans, and developing new strategies. On the other hand, a mentor takes a more direct approach, with the mentor providing guidance, sharing their own experience, and advising based on their own expertise. So with the mentor, the discussion may be more about what the fact that the mentor has walked in the shoe of the mentee, and providing guidance based on that level of discussion. So those are just broad distinctions between a coach and a mentor. As I mentioned earlier, you do find that there may be overlap in approach between the two, but it's clearly important to understand that the coach, they're not generally subject matter experts in the field of the individual. Now, we have different definitions of coaching, and one definition I'd like to share with you is the definition from Sir John Whitmore, one of the gurus and co-founders of coaching in organizations. So a description that he's coined is coaching is unlocking people's potential to maximize their own performance. It's helping them to learn rather than teaching. Now, when we talk about unlocking a person's potential, you can imagine that this comes with the view that there is a certain amount of potential in the organization, in the person. There's a certain amount of knowledge, experience, and it's perhaps just looking at what could be standing in the way of that individual really maximizing their potential to the greatest degree for themselves and for the organization. When you have a look at the diagram on the left-hand side, you see that at the bottom bit there, you have the comfort zone, and that's where a lot of people operate. They operate where it's comfortable for them, not in a non-threatening environment, what they're happy with, what makes them feel very comfortable and secure. Now, what coaching will enable the individual to do is to really expand beyond that comfort zone and expand their thinking and look at how they view their thinking, and that enables them to grow and develop. And so that just gives you a snapshot of the opportunities that exist through having a coaching approach within an organization. Overall, coaching is a partnership. And that's a key point to remember. It's a partnership between a coach and a coachee. Now, generally speaking, in coaching, the coachee, the participant, is responsible for their progress, while the coach is generally responsible for the process. So it's a partnership where the coach and coachee are equal partners in a relationship. They collaborate to achieve the goal and the objective that is set for example, professional development of the coachee. But this partnership actually acknowledges the coachee's autonomy and self-determination in their journey. So the coach acts as a facilitator, supporting and empowering the coachee to take charge of their own development. Together, working together, which is key, they form a partnership based on trust, collaboration, and shared commitment to achieving the coachee's goals. Let's have a look at some of the modalities around coaching in organizations. How might an organization, structure the whole coaching framework? And I just want to share that with you, just to give you a sense of what may work in your organization and what you may want to apply based on the unique nature of the organization. So on the left-hand side, we have coach practitioners. Generally speaking, these are individual coaches who are certified or credentialed. Certification means that they've gone through a rigorous program of professional development in coaching. And so organizations can utilize an external coach, all right? And this is very common for organizations that have no internal capacity or expertise in coaching. They usually utilize an external coach. Of course, more and more organizations are building that internal muscle, building that internal capacity so that they can be a lot more agile. And an internal coach will obviously work across the organization. And generally speaking, it usually is much more than just one person in that certified coach role. And so you could also have a combination of someone who acts as an internal coach as well as an external coach working to a number of organizations. On the right-hand side, this is quite common where organizations are really seeking to build coaching holistically. In other words, through members of the HR department, the talent development department, and managers across the organization, throughout the cadre of the organization at all levels. You have individuals who are using coach-like conversations with their team. And so when determining whether to introduce coaching, you'd want to look at, are we looking at the person's aptitude or looking at the person's attitude? So there are ways of approaching this, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the modalities that could exist in organizations as far as introducing coaching into the organization. So we want to begin now. I want to take you through trust and empathy, a key element of coaching. How does coaching actually support trust and empathy? Okay, I've got some bullets here for you to consider. How does coaching build trust and empathy? We're going to look at confidentiality. We're going to look at listening actively. What is listening actively? What do I mean by being non-judgmental? How does coaching support, one being compassionately curious and deliver acknowledgement? Now, on the issue of confidentiality, coaches place a very high value on confidentiality. So the information shared in a coaching conversation between a coach and coachee remains private, right? It remains confidential unless there's a risk to harm to oneself or others. Other than that, the discussion stays between the coach and coachee. And it's actually quite important to recognize this, especially for individuals and organizations who are having coaching conversations. This is quite an important element to bear in mind. And that really does build trust and build empathy. So this commitment to privacy creates a safe environment in which individuals can openly discuss their ideas, their challenges, and goals without fear of judgment or repercussion. On listening actively, coaches generally give full attention without distraction, without interruption, or imposing their own opinion. So this kind of attentive listening actually shows respect for the coachee and make them feel heard as well as understood. So it's important that in a coaching relationship, in a coaching conversation, in coaching discussion, that the person you're speaking to feels heard and you can pick up nuances in that conversation with them. And that's really what active listening is about. It's about listening to understand the viewpoint of the person that you're speaking to. Now, when I mention non-judgmental, I'm not saying you won't be judgmental. We're talking about suspending judgment. So when I have non-judgmental here, I'm talking about suspending judgment because, everybody walks around with a sense of judgment, but it's about suspending judgment while you're having that conversation. Now, coaches, you take an approach, a non-judgmental approach, avoiding criticism of the person that they're coaching. So individuals can feel safe to express themselves, their emotion, their vulnerability, because they know that they will be understood. They will be understood and they will be heard. So coaching through this means will actually demonstrate empathy and build that air of trust in the relationship. Coaches seek to understand your point of view, the other person's point of view, validate the emotions that are being expressed by the coachee, and provide as much support as possible. So this empathetic approach fosters trust by forgoing a bond that is actually building, by forging a bond rather, that is actually building a base for the relationship to exist between the coach and the coachee. So I have another poll, and this poll is really meant to gauge a sense of what you've been able to establish so far and how you now could relate that to your organization. So let's have the poll and let's look at the questions that we're asking. So having heard what you've heard so far, how do you think coaching can contribute to a positive work culture and employee well-being? So let's take the poll. And thank you so much for those who have started the response. It's building. Thank you. We have over 50% of attendees, participants have responded, rising to 64% and rising even further. Please do take a moment to take this poll, because then it's you thinking about how you relate to what you've heard so far. So we're looking at, we'll have it, actually, let's take a few more seconds. It's still rising. We're over 73% now. Okay, so let's have a look at the results. It's interesting, isn't it? Greater trust and communication within teams has scored the highest at 58%. And that really does demonstrate what we're finding at EZ37 Solutions organizations, speaking with us week after week about how we can work with them to develop a coaching approach within their team. So, you know, as you say here, it builds trust and communication within teams. And almost everyone is a part of a team in an organization. So that result actually is not a surprise. Let's see, we have 32% increased employee satisfaction and motivation. And that does demonstrate the fact that in that coaching relationship, the coachee is key. You know, that building of empathy between the coach and coachee demonstrates a bond, a trust between them. And so we have 32%, it's the next highest score, 32% increased employee satisfaction and motivation. Better work-life balance has scored the lowest at 3%, and improved mental health and stress management at 6%. So well done, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation. But it does just give you a snapshot of what's top of the agenda. And as I say, greater trust and communication within teams is something that we have found week in, week out. So this poll does speak to what is actually going on in the workplace. So thank you again for your participation. So I'm going to look now at self-awareness. And as we all know, it all starts with the individual, you know, the growth, the development, the potential all starts with the individual. So let's look at self-awareness. And as you can see there, from that image, you see that cat looking in the mirror, and what the cat sees is not itself. It sees something else. It sees itself in the form of another animal. So that's interesting. So the question is, how do you see yourself? So let's now consider how coaching can develop your own self-awareness. So we're going to look at reflection, we're going to look at feedback and observation, assessment and tools, clarifying personal values, and enhancing emotional intelligence. How does coaching actually enable you to achieve this and bring out your potential? Just show up as your best self in your organization, right? As your best self in your team, and as your best self for your own self. How does coaching achieve that? So let's start with reflection. Now, coaches pose powerful questions, all right, that prompt you to reflect on your own experience and your beliefs and your values. And these questions encourage you to investigate your own thoughts. In other words, think about the way you think, right? The way you feel and your motivation, resulting in a better understanding of yourself. So that reflection is actually key, and it's an element of professional development, and it's something that is very much encouraged in coaching. It's part and parcel of having been coached, you know, going through that reflective process, and just looking at what it is you want to discuss and looking at it perhaps from different perspectives. So that reflective exercise, we find is, you know, as a coach, I find that when I start my coaching engagement, it's something that a lot of, especially leaders, are not finding enough time to do. They're racing through the day, not giving it enough time for reflection. But when you do engage a coach, a professional coach, that is an important element that you build upon, and that actually encourages you to see how you can develop your own self-awareness. Now, feedback is so important. We talk a lot about feedback. I was coaching a group yesterday, and we're talking about feedback, and I was asking them, and I said, on a scale of, say, 1 to 10, how much feedback do you offer and how much feedback do you receive? And these were managers. And at least 90% of them said that they are very quick to give feedback, but they're very slow to receive feedback. All right. And so it's just the nature of the environment that they're in. But that was an acknowledgement that was really great, because in that coaching relationship that we had, they were open and they felt safe, and they could express themselves, and they could really look at this issue of feedback. So we then began to look at how does feedback support them, and that's what I want to touch on for you here today. So coaches offer objective feedback and observation based on behaviors and patterns. Now, this feedback will assist you in gaining insight into your own strengths, your areas for development, and generally, as a result, increase your own awareness of yourself. And that's what the feedback does. It's exceptionally powerful. And it's something that that when you give yourself the opportunity to be coached, that's an aspect of the growth that you begin to gain. You become much more used to receiving objective feedback based on behavior, based on the insight that the coach is receiving. Now, assessment and tools have become exceptionally popular, very, very popular. And coaches may use a variety of assessments and tools, such as a personality assessment, 360-degree feedback, to provide individuals with additional information about their strengths, their preferences, their areas for improvement. And these assessments can provide useful information that improves self-awareness. Now, it's important to recognize that the way I've listed these bullets here is not in any particular order. An assessment on their own may provide the support that's required, but generally speaking, you would use the assessment in combination with a number of other options. As we see there, we have reflection, feedback, and we've added in the tools and the tools and the assessment and the tools. When it comes to clarifying personal values, coaches will help. A coach will help you clarify your values, right? Which are the principles and beliefs that guide your actions and your decisions. And interestingly, this is something that when you do engage a coach and you take a moment to reflect, to look at your beliefs, to look at your values, and you may begin to ask yourself, is this what is driving my behavior? Am I driven by what I think about a certain person, about a certain issue? Are those beliefs grounded in fact, or are they just something going on in my mind, for example, a way that I choose to think? So when people understand their values, when you understand your values, you can align your goals and behavior accordingly, resulting in greater self-awareness and authenticity. And by authenticity, I'm talking about bringing your best self to your environment, whether your environment is at work, whether your environment is at home. Generally speaking, it's bringing your best self. If you're choosing to bring your best self to that environment based on what you found out about yourself. So coaching aids in development of emotional intelligence, which entails recognizing and comprehending your own emotions, as well as the impact that your emotion has on other people. Now, you can develop your self-awareness and improve your own, interpersonal relationship by exploring how you come across, by exploring your emotions. Goal setting is another one, tracking your progress. So a coach helps you to set meaningful goals and track the process. And this process enables you to think about your actions, your motivations, your actions, and promote self-awareness and personal growth. The issue of emotional intelligence is one that you find comes up again and again and again, and may even actually affect progress, the progress of an individual in an organization. I mean, what I commonly find is that leaders, some leaders are really great. You know, they've got the technical expertise. You know, you can't fault their knowledge of the subject matter. But when it comes to leading, that's where the issue begins. That's where the problem usually starts. And it's how they can relate to others in terms of their own emotions. How do they handle issues of difference? How do they express themselves when others have an opposing view? Do they even recognize that's about themselves? And that awareness actually gives greater insight. So I hope you're picking up now a bit about how coaching can support you as an individual. Before we even talk about going into the organization and you being a manager or a supervisor, leader, for example, where does it start with you? And I hope that you can see that you will gain in a transformational way by engaging a coach and you know, taking part in a coaching relationship so as to build your own muscle of awareness about yourself. So having found out a bit about yourself through being coached, let's now look at how does coaching support new sources of innovation and productivity? We're moving away now from the individual right into that team, right into that organization. How does coaching actually support that? There's a popular saying, tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. All right. And this is by Benjamin Franklin. It might be a saying that you're a quote that you might be used to. I mean, there are tons of quotes out there that can support, so, you know, have this sort of supportive word. But this is one that I chose specifically to share with you today. And I hope that as managers and as leaders in organization, you can it resonates with you. You know, when you tell someone something, you know, that's the leadership style of the past. A leader is not meant to expect you to know everything, but when you just tell, your team will generally forget what you told them. When you teach them, yes, they will remember, right? But when you involve them, right? When you involve them, you know, a minute ago I mentioned about feedback. And so when you give feedback and receive feedback and involve them, they will learn. So I'd like to share with you now some ways that can be achieved, that organizations can achieve this. So it's about looking at continuous learning that coaching can provide, can unlock those sources of innovation and productivity. You know, your employees come into the organization, you've brought them into the organization with a certain amount of knowledge, a certain amount of expertise, and if you have an expectation, you have your KPIs, etc. But when you introduce coaching into that forum, you can begin to notice continuous learning, bring about a culture of continuous learning and having a growth mindset, and not a fixed mindset, but a growth mindset. And it will also enable the individual to overcome limiting beliefs. I mentioned earlier, and when I spoke about self-awareness, is that belief based on a fact? Or is that belief just what the person thinks or would like to think? Again, we're looking at enhancing problem-solving skills, all right? And by problem-solving skills, that's really utilizing a number of approaches, not just one approach. Building confidence and resilience, all right? And in the environment in which we operate now, fast-paced environment, resilience is absolutely essential. We talk a lot about agility, but resilience, you know, is absolutely essential. And in improving communication and collaboration. So generally speaking, coaching promotes lifelong and continuous learning and development to support you to reach your full potential. It also encourages a growth mindset in which you're open to learning, to adapting, and to embracing new challenges. All right. It empowers you to break free, to lose yourself from self-imposed limitations. And I want to emphasize the word self-imposed limitations. And reach your full potential by challenging, you know, the negative thoughts and patterns and foster a growth mindset. So you have a negative thought. Do you want that to be the prevailing way that you think, or do you want to separate yourself from that thought and have a look at it and say, is that thought enabling me to achieve what I want to achieve? Is it serving me well or not? And so, that's what coaching does. It enables you to look at that independently. Now, it creates a safe and supportive environment where you can explore the unconventional solutions and consider different angles and possibilities, and helping you break free from rigid thinking patterns. The modern pace of change requires you to be dynamic, to look at, freeing yourself from just looking at things from one perspective. And so when you introduce a coaching culture, you begin to allow that growth to happen in the individual. So it will support individuals to think about problems, break them down, break complex problems, for example, into smaller, more manageable parts, identify key priorities, and develop an action plan to address each component. Now, this support will build confidence and resilience. The coach will ask thought-provoking questions. And through that process, the coach will help you develop alternative solutions. What options do you have? It's a popular one that I might ask when I'm coaching, and uncover hidden assumptions and biases. And so a coach will support you to embrace new opportunities for growth, learn about your setbacks, because it's an opportunity for you to learn, and adjust your approach as needed. So it's about supporting you to create a very positive mindset that views obstacles as temporary and solvable challenges. And that's key. Now, on communication, a coach will actually emphasize the importance of listening actively, which involves being fully engaged with others. And this is something that when I coach our managers, it's something that I coach them about, share that information, hear their own perspective about listening. Are they really listening? Are they really hearing what their team members are saying about any particular issue? That active listening element, because when you do listen as a leader, you tend to pick up a lot more, especially when it comes to looking at other perspectives about how you might address a particular issue. So through coaching, you learn to listen, you ask clarifying questions, we also say thought-provoking questions, and demonstrate empathy, foster better communication and understanding. When it comes to effective feedback, I bring up feedback again. A coach will support individuals to develop the skills and provide feedback effectively, right? There is a way to provide feedback. And through coaching, an individual will learn how do you give feedback? There's an approach to provide feedback that demonstrates trust, demonstrates respect for the person that you're engaging. So the coach will encourage you to give that specific constructive feedback that focuses on behavior and outcomes rather than personal attack. The personal attack will actually deliver any result. The coaches also teach you how to receive feedback, as I mentioned, and have an open mind and reflect on areas for improvement and seek ways to grow. So overall, it's a rich amount of content here that I've provided for you. And I really do hope that you're able to take away elements of it, personalize it, for example, with respect to building self-awareness, and then look at your organization, look at yourself as a leader, look at the opportunity for you to manage and grow a team to exponential levels of service delivery, and really maximize the potential that everybody comes into work each and every morning with, and how you might create that aura of trust in the team to enable them to show up, to be the best that they can be, and also enable them to give you feedback as a leader and feel safe about giving feedback. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Chidima, Coach Chidima, and she's going to take you through some solutions for organizations, having presented you with the key areas of what coaching can do. she's now going to take you a bit further down that route and provide you with some key solutions about that you may wish to consider. Thank you. So over to you, Chidima.
Thank you very much, Coach Patricia, for such insightful session so far. This is just to encourage us all to put in our questions in the chat box or the Q&A segment of this chat, and we will take it very soon. Now, to develop a coaching culture in your organizations, you can do this in two ways. You either get coached or you learn how to coach. Now, with getting coached, this has to do with managers and leaders receiving different forms of coaching from internally certified or externally certified coaches. And this can be done through one-to-one coaching or group and team coaching. And at Ease Effect 7 Solutions, we're very successfully year in, year out, run one-to-one coaching and group and team coaching for several national and multinational organizations within and outside the country. With learning how to coach, the employee would go from being the student to being the teacher. And by this, the employee learns how to use coaching skills or receive training to become a coach, like myself and Coach Patricia. And this can be deployed in the day-to-day work, in your organization. And as she mentioned at the beginning of this program, Ease Effect 7 Solutions is one of 2 accredited coach training institutions in Nigeria. And with this, you can either learn how to use coach skills for managers and leaders or get a coach certification program that makes you a certified coach. And when you deploy these 2 interventions, you are able to measure success by having a net promoter score or going through a pre and post 360 feedback, deploying coaching surveys, as an organization, deploying employee experience surveys, or deploying manager development feedback. With regards to assessment, as Coach Patricia mentioned at the beginning of this program, assessment is a fantastic tool that would typically help you either develop, either support acquisition, that's talent acquisition, or develop talent and self. And for selection, Ease Effect 7 Solutions provides assessment to support these 2 critical areas. Our selection assessment takes a strategic and integrated assessment approach. And by this, it means considering the different phases of talent management strategy and integrating them in continuous iteration process that places people at the center of business needs. You can either deploy psychometric assessments that checks for personality, behavior, cognitive, and aptitude, or technical assessments for checking for IT and non-IT skills, or even digital readiness in the organization. And with regards to development, our assessment is a scientific and objective assessment tool that raises both internal and external awareness. That's either by using the DISC behavioral tool or a 360 leadership effectiveness tool that allows the individual or the leader take a 360 approach into 8 critical competencies that allows for high-performing, effective leaders. And at this point, I'll hand back over to Coach Patricia to take the poll.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chidima. We have our final poll for you today. I really want to appreciate your participation in these polls because it provides a snapshot of how you're seeing things from your perspective. So let's have this final poll. And we would like to know, how do you think coaching can benefit your organization where you're presently working? Thank you again for those who have started to respond to the poll. I encourage everyone to have a go at this because it's our final poll and it really gives you a chance to reflect on how you think coaching can benefit your organization. We'll allow a few more seconds to give you the chance to participate. Okay, let's look at the results. Interesting. Yeah, so we see here that unlocking new sources of innovation and productivity has come top, 46%. Again, much like I would have expected it to be. For the organizations that, we work with multinationals and nationals, we work internationally, they are seeing most importantly, how coaching is really maximizing benefits on business growth. Chidima talked through the options, net promoter score, the surveys that are happening in the organization, the feedback mechanisms that are now becoming day-to-day practice in teams really coming out and saying, how about we do this way? How about we look at it differently? We look at our recruitment process differently. We look at how we retain talent differently. With the Gen Z and the younger workforce coming into the organization, there's an expectation that they will be able to maximize their potential. Quite dynamic, quite informative, and quite ready to be expressive. And so when coaching is introduced into environment, we really do see exponential growth in terms of new sources. And I really want to emphasize the word new. It was there. It unlocks. Coaching enables you, just imagine a key in a lock. Coaching enables you to unlock that because of the self-expressive nature that's provided and the safe environment that's provided. So these results are really, really, really what we are seeing at E37 Solutions, working with these organizations. So we have 46%. That's followed by improving self-awareness, 21, and that is the same as enhancing teamwork and collaboration. And then we have trust and empathy, which scored quite highly anyway earlier. So this is quite interesting. So thank you very, very much for everyone who participated in the poll. Really great. We're leaders in certification programs. And I'd like to bring to your attention 2 programs that would be of interest to organizations and would be of interest to you as a leader. The first one is a professional coach certification program. And as I mentioned earlier, we are accredited by the International Coaching Federation, the gold standard for coaching globally. We have a program starting on the 8th of October this year. The onboarding is on the 8th of October. It's a virtual program. It's a facilitator-led program. So it's live, it's interactive, and it's facilitator-led. And we do have participants joining us from across different countries. When you become a certified coach, we also have a very, very dynamic and powerful alumni. We have a team dedicated to the alumni of our coach certification program. And so recently, if you follow us on LinkedIn, for example, you may have noticed that we had over 25 alumni participating and offering over 50 hours of coaching to leaders in organizations, multinationals as well as national organizations. And so that task was managed by our alumni team. So as well as coming in and receiving coach training to become a certified coach, when you complete the training, you are not on your own. We support you to be professional and we provide you with coaching opportunities. And so the most recent one on LinkedIn, you can check it out, was a global program organized by the International Coaching Federation, and it was the International Coaching Week. So E37 Solution played a significant role in ensuring that we demonstrated that, our commitment to coaching. So that program is coming up on the 8th of October. On the right-hand side, you can see that we have another program. I mentioned earlier that we are a signatory to the International and Finance Corporation Learning and Performance Institute, the name of the World Bank. And this is the Facilitating Learning Online and In-Person program. This program also leads to certification through the body that you see there. The training starts in September. It's for 5 weeks, approximately 5.5 weeks. It happens on Tuesdays and Fridays, and it's a virtual program again. These two programs will equip organizations with the necessary certified employees to drive growth in the organization. So, for example, with the facilitating learning online and in person, do your L&D team merely provide training, or are they facilitating learning? That's the question to answer. And if you'd like to know more about that, please get in touch with us, and we will be happy to share. Our sizes of our program, we only have a few. For example, the professional coach education program, we only have a maximum of 15 per cohort, right? We don't have large classes because we want to infuse that learning and build that connection between the participants and the facilitator. And the same applies to facilitating learning. So we are leaders in certification program, and these are two that are coming up, and we'll be sharing our 2024 calendar shortly on LinkedIn, but you can find out more about this from us.
Thank you very much, Coach Patricia. We have a few questions in the Q&A box, and we also have a few in the chat box as well. So I'll just be taking them through. Please to respond. So we have Aderemi Oluwaseun who has asked, what are some common challenges faced during your coaching journey, and how can they be overcome? What are some common challenges faced during your coaching journey, and how can they be overcome? Just to confirm, if you'd like to take all the questions at once, or you want to answer question by question.
Okay, so I'll just take them one at a time, if I may, because sometimes I have to ask a bit more clarification. This question about common challenges faced during a coaching journey, from whose perspective? If the person who asked the question could please clarify that, because it's important to understand, are we talking about it from the coach's perspective or the coach's perspective? It's a personal question directly to me about my own journey. I just want to be clear on that. So can we go to the second question while perhaps that person may want to clarify a bit there? Thank you.
Okay, and so Aderemi Oluwaseun, if you could please clarify, and if you want to speak, just raise your hand. I'm happy to call you. We have a question from Omoshola Awobodu, who has asked, how do you handle confidentiality and ethical considerations in coaching? How do you handle confidentiality and ethical considerations in coaching?
Great, that's a really, really good question. And as I mentioned earlier, the issue of confidentiality is top of the agenda for a coach. And, you know, when you become a certified coach, through the training, really, you will be bound by standards and ethics of the International Coaching Federation. And that's key. And so you bring that into the coaching relationship. For example, when you do have when you're meeting an organization and, speaking with them about becoming a coach to their employees, you'll be mentioning the issue of confidentiality, that the discussion between the coach and the coachee is confidential, their ethical standards, you will not reveal what's discussed there. And so you would only do so in one or two instances, one or two occurrences. For example, if there's an issue of harm, if coachee threatens to harm themselves or harm somebody else, and that's an instance. And the other one is, for example, if you notice that perhaps the coachee requires the support from another form of another support system, for example, a therapist or a counselor. But apart from that, we're bound by very, very high standards of ethics and confidentiality of coaching. And those are sort of the non-negotiables of being a professional coach. So I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you very much, Coach Patricia. There's a question from Adora Ayode, And she asked that you said that in your recent group coaching session, the manager said that with regards to feedback, 90% is giving of feedback, whilst only 10% is receiving feedback. Considering how important it is for managers to receive feedback, can you share how coaching can support in enabling a better balance? So I'll take it again. You said that in your recent group coaching session, the manager said that with regards to feedback, 90% is giving feedback, while only 10% is receiving feedback. Considering how important it is for managers to receive feedback, can you share how coaching can support in enabling a better balance?
Yes, the better balance is actually quite important because there's clearly an imbalance there. And so if I just imagine myself in an organization as a leader, and I just put myself in that perspective of perhaps previously I didn't receive any feedback. All I did was give feedback, I would be transitioning through coaching into understanding the value of what feedback can do to me as a leader. I would be asking my team members about, what thoughts do they have about a particular issue? Would they like to share their thoughts? I'll be making them understand that it's just important that we work together as a team, that I, the leader, I don't have all the answers, and I really do value their input, and I value their suggestions, and I value their ideas, and that no idea is off the table. I would also want them to understand that I'm open to hearing from them on any issue that they wish to discuss related to what it is that we're discussing. Maybe we're discussing a project. Maybe they feel that the position that they've been given on the project is not quite the right position for them. I'd be encouraging that two-way conversation. And I think the thing about feedback to understand is it's about communication, and communication is two-way. It's a two-way process. If I'm discussing something with my employee, my team member, and I'm not even listening to them, I'm speaking over them, and I'm not giving them the chance to let me know whether they've understood what I've said, how it resonates with them, how they would approach it, I'm not actually communicating. I'm not actually getting feedback. And I think sometimes managers actually feel that feedback time is when we have appraisal. That's a common one. That's something that someone actually said, that's when they're ready to hear feedback. And feedback is all continuous. That's what learning is continuous. Feedback is continuous. And so when that is applied, you begin to see a shift in that percentage. From 90%, it starts improving. And you find then that the manager is open, is vulnerable to the team, and enables the team to feel like, yes, I can be the best that I can be. If I'm the best that I can be, I am not a threat to my manager, because my manager is ready to hear my thoughts and hear my beliefs and hear about and acknowledge my contribution to the team. And I think that's quite important. When you create that safe space is the environment in which feedback can foster. And so that 90% then begins to drop. And that way, whether or not the manager is around, the team can function, because the team is able to think on its own 2 feet and not relying on the manager to do the thinking for the team. So I hope that gives a snapshot of the sort of things that can be considered. Thank you.
Yes, so creating a safe space where feedback can thrive. With that, Omoshola Awobodi has asked, how can you share a success story? Can you share a success story or case study from a coaching experience you've had?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm just thinking of I can think of one in particular where I was coaching a leader, quite a senior leader, and the senior leader obviously believed that they had been assigned to partner with me as a coach because they had done something really wrong in the organization. So there was a problem, all right? They didn't actually recognize initially that they had been put forward for coaching because of the belief the organization had in them. And so the organization particularly wanted them to work with, to begin to really see themselves as a person that can relate to different stakeholders in the organization, irrespective of who they are, whether they're employees, whether they're the unions, whether they're the board, but begin to build on that confidence. The technical skill was there, but the confidence was a little bit lacking from the organization perspective. So that's an example I could give. And so with a lot of the leaders I coach, the coaching generally happens over a couple of months. And over the couple of months, the individual can begin to ask questions, reflect on on how they're thinking, and work towards the objective that they set out to work on. Now, it's important to mention that some of the best coaching happens between sessions. Because I mentioned reflection earlier. So I have my coaching sessions with my coachee, and maybe we may meet again in another 2 weeks or another month. In between that time, it's really interesting how there may be growth in that person. There may be shifts in their perspective, and how they now bring that into the next conversation and discuss it, or perhaps they have another coaching topic that they wish to have. So that just gives you a snapshot of how I work with a case study of how I would work with someone. I do have to emphasize that every individual is unique. There is no one size fits all. And as a result, when coaching, it's not professional to come into a coaching relationship, a coaching conversation with prepared questions. You come into the coaching relationship to learn about the coaching. And so the thought-provoking questions that I ask are based on what the person has shared with me. All right. And so that brings a uniqueness to the relationship. And it enables me to understand the person better, and enables the person to be able to feel safe to share more about how they see the situation. So it's important to recognize that it's a unique transformational relationship when an individual works with a coach. In the past, the norm was that you offer coaching to people who are not doing well. But the world has moved on. A lot of organizations are ensuring that to build that bench strength, all right, to build that strength of leadership for the future, for now and the future, to cascade coaching through the organization, it's not just about the people who are not doing very well. And a lot of organizations are making coaching available to every single individual in the organization. Some are taking a step-by-step approach, but that in a snapshot gives a sense of a case study that I could give as an example.
Okay, so we have 3 other questions in the chat. One is from Ileyemi Ajibola, who has asked, how best can coaching be deployed in an organization, especially managers with the skills, not making employees feel their approach is interrogatory and intruding? So Ajibola wants to know the best way you can deploy coaching in an organization, especially managers that use coaching skills, in such a way that they do not make employees feel that their approach is interrogatory and intruding.
Well, the manager, thank you so much for that question. The manager themselves would need to understand what coaching is, right? So that understanding needs to be there, and the managers themselves would need to go through a program that guides them on how to approach your role as a how to approach your role in the way that you are a coach-like manager, you're a coach-like leader. You build that trust, you build that empathy, you create that environment of being non-judgmental. You develop openness in the team, all right? And you ensure that every team member is able to feel that they can add value to the team. Another way to do that is to introduce acknowledgement, right? So if somebody comes up with an idea that's excellent, give them credit, let them own it, right? And let them share what it is about how they arrived at that solution that can benefit others. So that would be my response to that question.
Okay, and Priscilla has asked, how do you handle managers who do not receive coaching positively, especially when junior managers are the certified coaches for the organization? So Priscilla wants to know how a situation whereby the junior managers are certified coaches, how do you handle managers who are not receiving coaching positively?
Yes, I mean, every organization has its own way of addressing issues. So I wouldn't be able to give a one size fit all to it. But coaching is it's like saying, how would you manage a leader who doesn't want to recognize that we have an appraisal process, or we have a process for managing a certain aspect of the business. We look at how that is. How do you manage non-conformance in the organization? Has it been explained to the manager the benefits of coaching? Have they been given the opportunity to perhaps have a coaching session, one or two coaching sessions? And you don't go into a coaching session cold. You take your time to enable the manager, for example, may wish to be given 2 or 3 coaches to have a half an hour session with, to have what we call a chemistry session, and perhaps see which of them you'd like to work with, perhaps give them 1 or 2 opportunities to be coached. But where somebody refuses completely to receive coaching, the question has to be asked, is there more to it than meets the eye? And so whoever it is in that organization responsible for people management may need to find out what is the overriding issue, what is the issue behind that. Is there something more to it that needs to be explored? And has that person's fear, has their concern been addressed? Has it been addressed respectfully and professionally? And have they perhaps spoken to others who have received coaching, and have they been given the opportunity to ask questions of those people to maybe answer what it is that they really want answered? So that's how I would address it. I'll do so from an empathetic point of view, because people do have a right to express their opinion. But what's important is, how do you now take that and work with them to enable them to see the value that you are offering them? Now, the thing about coaching is, and this is important, people who receive coaching just are taking, it's lifelong learning. You can take that learning from coaching, from that role you're in, from that job, into any other job you go to. It's a gift. Organizations that are bringing in coaching cultures, enabling their team members to be coached, their staff to be coached, it's an absolute gift, because that's an intangible that nobody can take away from you. That growth in your confidence, in your self-expression, in your awareness, you take with you for the rest of your life. So the managers who actually deny themselves that, they are actually missing out. They're not moving forward, they're standing still. And there's a saying that standing still is the same as moving backwards. Thank you.
We have 2 questions from Adeomi Uluwasheo, and Adeomi has asked, in what ways can coaching complement other learning and development strategies? She has also asked, what advice would you give an individual looking to become a certified?
Okay, so the first one is, how does coaching complement other forms of support? Is that right?
Other learning and development strategies.
Yeah. I mean, coaching is one of several. I mentioned mentoring earlier, and we do provide a lot of support on mentoring. We actually devise mentoring programs for organizations. So, I mean, for example, you may want to look at coaching, and you may then ask questions around, what are you trying to achieve? What is the objective? All right, because there's a place for coaching and there's a place for mentoring, and you can actually have situations where you combine both. So other forms might be mentoring, and it might be shadowing. Those are the 2 that come to mind most pertinently. So there are other forms, and coaching is definitely one of them. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I do is I'm actually, I coach refugees, all right? So I'm a member of Refugee Jumpstart. It's an American-based organization, and that consists of coaches globally. And what they do is they assign professional coaches to refugees who are professionals. You know, like we've had the war in Ukraine. We have my last coach was from Rwanda, but she lives in Cameroon. So that's an example. You know, when I coach her, the plan is that I coach and I mentor her. So what the organization does, they tailor the brief to somebody who can provide a bit of coaching, a bit of mentoring. So that's an example, a classic example of how you can combine coaching with mentoring. So that shows the complementary nature of coaching. Now, advice on somebody who wants to become a certified coach. Was that a question? Was that one of the questions?
Yes, that was.
Becoming a certified coach is
Yes.
yeah.
It's
Certified coach is becoming quite important for leaders in organizations. And I'm not talking about leaders in the HR department only, in the HR space only. So advice is you learn about self-awareness. You learn about the competencies required to be a professional coach. You know, the active listening, how you evoke awareness. We learn about how do you work on empathy and energy? How does that come into the space? So we find that the certification to become a coach is relevant to leaders, full stop. It's not relevant to just certain members of leadership in certain departments. So in our program, for example, we have leaders who are doctors, who are accountants. We have leaders, we have CEOs from organizations, That's because the knowledge gained is dynamic. It really can make a difference to how you then position yourself in the organization to really drive growth. So the advice I would have is look at where you are in the organization. Identify where the organization sees itself, or where you see yourself in the organization. Have a chat with your leadership about the benefits of you being certified to provide that level of support, that level of coaching support in the organization. Because when you are certified, you become recognized anywhere in the world. All right. So when you go through our certification program, you complete the program, whether you move from the UK to Nigeria or to Kenya or to America, wherever you go in the world, your certification goes with you. So you become international certified. So the advice I would give is that it's something really that the organizations are expecting their leaders to be coach-like. And it's actually coming into a lot of job description, person specification. They're asking about what experience people have. They're expecting people to demonstrate capability of coaching skills. And so by becoming a certified coach, you're ahead of the game. And as I mentioned, we support you a ton to be successful and to build yourself up as a coach through our alumni program. So the advice I would give is to look at it and to look at, is there any reason why? Is there any reason why you wouldn't give yourself that opportunity? Imagine where you could be this time next year by making a decision. And I'll say the next program is the 8th of October.
Thank you very much, Coach Patricia. Is there any reason why you will not give yourself that opportunity? And with that question and that feedback, we would like to thank you all so much for joining today's Benefits of Coaching webinar. I hope you found it insightful and applicable to your field and your organization. Just before we wrap up, I want to express our sincere gratitude at ETS7 Solutions to each and every one of you for your active participation, your engagement, and your thought-provoking questions. Your contributions have made this webinar truly interactive and enriching. I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the key takeaways from today's webinar. Consider applying the knowledge and ideas to your professional journey as well as your organization. As a reminder, We will be sharing a recording of this webinar, and this will allow you to revisit the content, share with colleagues or team members who couldn't join us today, or delve deeper into the topics we have explored. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have further questions or require additional support. Stay connected, keep learning, and apply the insights gained from today's webinar to drive positive change and growth in your organization. It was great being your co-presenter for today's webinar. Just before we say our final goodbyes, Coach Patricia, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's been great. It's a great 1.5 hours. I want to thank everybody for participating in the webinar, especially in those polls, because it gave you a chance to look at the question, think about the question, however short it was. You did some reflection. That's the important thing. And till we see you next time, we're here for you. We're here to answer any questions. We'll share the video, share our learning, and till we meet next time, thank you very much and goodbye. Thank you.